Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and typically look at Super Eyepatch Wolf's Riverdale, the show that went completely insane. I don't know anything about the show other than, from what I've heard, this title is completely accurate. I know it's insane. How it's insane? No idea. It's, I think, based on the Archie comics from the 50s? I don't know. I never followed Archie. I just know they had a lot of weird crossovers because it was owned by the same company, and it got even weirder, so maybe that's a play? I don't know. But you know what? I've seen so many really good, happy-go-lucky stories right now that just make me feel, wow, this is hopeful. When Super Eyepatch Wolf talks about wrestling, I feel, you know what? People said this is what I should watch after the fake psychic videos because it has the same tone. And you know what? I feel like it's time to suffer again. So let's jump right in and see how much this is going to mentally scar me like the Garfield video and the fake psychic videos all over again. Which, admittedly, I'm here for, so that's more a reflection of me making bad decisions than anything else. You guys know the deal. Link below, video, hit it up. Let's get started.
Here's a few out-of-context moments from Riverdale.
What?
One attendee of Riverdale High is discovered to be a grown woman pretending to be a high school student. There is a group
Isn't that literally something that happened in reality, though? Also, every CW show... Oh, it's probably meta humor.
of homoerotic superheroes. A 17-year-old competes in a bare-knuckle boxing match with an evil billionaire to take control of the town. There is a
I'm sorry. Why would a billionaire need to fight in a bare-knuckle boxing match against a 17 for a town? What? If you're a billionaire, you can just buy the town. Why is this? Okay, I see where this is going. This is going to be weird.
magic word that wipes people's memories and puts them into a violent murder trance.
I mean, everyone knows what that word is. It's, in hindsight, I'm not going to say it out loud. We've had way too many incidents with that already.
There is a cult of evil subterranean nuns known as the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. A character spends the night playing Dungeons and Dragons with ghosts before beating himself to death with a baseball bat. A girl is haunted by an evil
See, that's completely ridiculous. Even if they're dead, you couldn't get an entire group together to play D&D. It just doesn't happen.
doll. The town of Riverdale is invaded by zombies. There are 9 serial killers across 4 seasons.
Only
One of them
9?
is an 11-foot tall monster known as the Gargoyle King. This happens.
Mr. Chipping? I'm sorry, Jughead, that I couldn't help you. Mr. Chipping!
This also happens.
No. Oh, they're going to...
Many other things happen, and I would like to talk about them. See, I've developed a...
You know what? I thought this was going to be weird. It's like, it's insane. I heard there was like some weird undercurrents in this thing. And now it's like, okay, they're just cashing in on Stranger Things horror, aren't they? Like, not the funny aspects, but more the, hey, remember this part is scary? We're going to make a show that just is that. Oh, no.
unhealthy
Can't tell if I like it or not.
obsession with this show.
Is it just weird for the sake of weird?
Fascinated.
I don't know if
as
that's
to
good or
how
bad.
A show that started as a very normal teen drama
Really?
could morph into one of the most bizarre and ridiculous.
What? Okay, this is weird. Going full carry.
And to ask, is there value in that? Oh God, I think there might be. To properly chart this.
I'm not sure which is more interesting to me right now. Just how weird it gets, because at this point, shock value for shock value's sake is a thing that we kind of all see all the time. Everything after the first Saw movie, you know what I'm talking about. But one, this would still hit me because I'm a coward. And two, how did it go from normal show to, oh God, what are we getting into show? Was it an intentional decision? Or were the writers just stressed and the people saying, hey, you probably shouldn't do that, just said, fuck it, go wild, because no one cared at that point? I don't know, and I'm kind of curious to find out if he has any information about that.
Full descent into madness, I want to take a second and look at the original
Oh, it was the Archie
comic
comics
series that began in 1941. And full disclosure, as a bog child who grew up in Ireland, my experience with the Archie comic goes exactly as far as that one joke from The Simpsons. But
I mean, technically, that's further than my experience with Archie comics. Knowing they exist, that's it. That's all I got. There is literally nothing more. I wasn't even sure they were in The Simpsons. This is more information than I had starting.
looking back on it now, it's easy to imagine how the pastel world of diners and milkshakes would have been the simple escapism America needed post-World War II. Escapism that centered around Archie, your lovesick teenage everyman ensnared in a love triangle between Betty, the safe but fun, wholesome girl next door, and Veronica, the fiery high society daughter of a millionaire. So I guess kinda like Asuka and Rey if you grew up in the 60s. These are the correct choices, and I'm closing comments.
I don't see why he has to close comments. He's completely right.
As well as Jughead, the aloof, burger-hungry best friend who balanced out the romance-obsessed cast by having zero interest in it. Stories were simple, the art was charming, but what's interesting looking back now is how guarded that style was. Despite being worked on by dozens of different artists and writers over the decades, the series never really changed.
Wait, it was still being made in 2013? That's actually really impressive. Not just the fact that they maintained the style, but they had this much detail in 1960s. Keep in mind what a lot of 1960s comics look like. And this is just, oh, hey, this is kind of cool. And if you saw it today, it would look like something today. It's like, yeah, it's an older style, has very much the American comic vibe, but it hasn't gone for the over the top, wow, we need to make characters look as ugly as possible because that's exactly how we think it's funny. And admittedly, it is. But it's just so overdone right now. It's like they've looped around to being ahead of the time by being so far behind the times and maintaining the style throughout with dozens of people drawing this, or is that just the writers? I'm sorry, the longevity of it's actually very impressive on my end. I'm not sure if I would like it still. Doesn't really fit my style of, well, I was going to say animation because of the video. My style of comic choice, mostly because I don't think I have one anymore. Oh, that's actually depressing. Ugh, and disappointing. But that's more my own thing.
The license holders being so protective, they even shut down a gay Archie stage play as they were worried it would harm the integrity of the characters. Wow.
What year was that in? 2003, the gay Archie stage play would harm the integrity of the characters. That, after all of this, yeah, I'm assuming someone new took over because that is definitely not the case anymore.
Archie stage play as they were worried it would harm the integrity of the characters. Well,
yep.
I hope that decision doesn't become retroactively humiliating. However,
it's a good thing companies have no sense of humor or shame, because otherwise that would be very much the case for many reasons. And admittedly, not even close to what they should feel. Let's be honest. We all know companies who have done way dumber things, like try to retroactively charge developers for video games that they already made. Say, hey, now you owe us a couple $1 million extra that we did have in the contract. Have fun with that. Yeah, that would be stupid. Can you imagine anyone dumb enough to do that? Moving on.
This unwillingness to change meant that by the early 2000s, Archie, this series that had once regularly outsold Batman and Superman,
seriously?
had shrunk to just 0.5% of the market, leading to a wave of titles that broke the traditional style and tone of Archie, like the ironically named Life with Archie, where Archie dies. But it was actually a variant cover of this comic that would change the fate of the series forever, one depicting Archie facing zombified versions of Betty, Veronica, and Jughead, which...
Wait, so the creepy shit happened in the comics as well? I mean, admittedly, 0.5% of comic sales is, I have literally no idea at this point because I have no idea what comic sales are. I mean, 2.99 cents? So it's like, what, $2 then? Why just put it $2.99? Why not just $2? Or $1.99? Or is it $3? That is a very weird way to write it because they have the cents instead of dollars and a period there, and I hate it.
Led to another spin-off, Afterlife with Archie, which I refuse to explain the premise of because you can see it right here. And Afterlife with Archie was kind of awesome, a really cool piece of horror while simultaneously being this really interesting take on an alternate Riverdale. And it was a smash hit, selling 40,000 copies and propelling its writer, Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, to the chief creative officer of Archie Comics.
Oh.
Sacasa being the writer of that gay Archie stage play that had been shut down.
Oh, so I said a bit ago, wow, they definitely changed who's in charge, and apparently they did. I'm sorry, if I stop the video right here, I'm going to love everything about this, because that's the bit of karmic, hey, all right, you fucked with me, I own you, bitch, that's just perfect for me right now. That is literally saying, okay, Don't you just wish you left that gay Archie stage play out there? Oh, if they haven't re-released it, I would be very disappointed at this point. Would I go see it? I still don't care about Archie, but I wish it was out there because there's an audience for that. Because at this point, we all know if there's anything from the internet, there is always an audience for that. Every time, always, all the time, no matter how horrible. Oh God, I don't want to think about that.
Oh dear. As well as the person who would go on to pitch and become the lead creative on Riverdale. Sakasa is an interesting fellow, but if I could find one quote to sum him up creatively, and what honestly made a lot of Riverdale make a lot more sense, it would be this 2003 interview where he talks about how one of his assignments in drama school was to write a
Yale Drama School? Huh. I'm actually surprised. I didn't know Yale had a drama school. I guess it's probably like saying they also have an accounting program, and you're just like, I'm going to forget that because it hurts my head. But more, maybe that's just my take, because as soon as someone talks about anything about accounting, my mind starts to shut down. It's not exactly painless. It actually causes a lot of actual horror and pain and internal hemorrhaging, but that's just a natural reaction to accounting in general. I stand by everything I said.
1 hour play using just a single set and no more than 4 characters.
Single set, 4 characters. Oh, I've actually seen a lot of plays like that, and they're fascinating. How I Learned to Drive. I haven't seen that one. Although I will admit, when I've seen these very cut down shows, I've seen them done in 2 different ways. One, it's done for humor, so it's multiple people in obscene outfits or absolutely no outfits at all. Take that how you wish. Sometimes both happen. And they'll just go out of the way to overact and then underact comparisons to how different characters are playing the same person, or one person's playing multiple characters. Technically, I think I've also seen both of those things as well, so it's not even a misspeak. But it's usually done for humor. I haven't seen someone do it seriously or in drama or horror. I wonder how he applied that to this concept when there's a much bigger cast.
The play I wrote was over 2 hours long, had 7 actors, 2 of whom were kids, 3 sets, and a giant squid.
Let's be completely honest here, and this is going to sound weird for anyone who hasn't done anything around theater. I wrote a few things, mostly for school. And the biggest thing you're always worried about is don't deal with kids. The giant squid is probably the easiest thing on there. 7 actors, okay, you got to work with people. 2 of them are kids. Not even just the maturity levels, but sometimes voice cracks. Sometimes they have aspects that they need to deal with. Being ready on time, having a late night showing. Wondering why the kids are allowed to stay out so late, and then thinking, do I call CPS now or do I wait until after the set's done? And then, yeah, that. 3 sets. Depending on how detailed those sets are, that could also be a huge money sink. He's writing a TV show, isn't he? That's the thing. He doesn't actually get a play out of this because it would be better as a TV show with this much in there.
This is the mindset that Riverdale came from, and worth noting as we descend into madness.
The giant squid is literally the easiest
things
part.
Don't start off that way. The first season of Riverdale feels like a very average teen drama,
Wait, it was the entire first season that started normal?
hinged with a trace of Twin Peaks. The story beginning
Oh,
when
so it did have a
Jason
bit of a
Blossom,
weirdness.
heir to the Blossom family fortune, is discovered drowned in a boating accident alongside his twin sister Cheryl, who has survived. His death rippling through the town and unearthing a stockpile of unsavory secrets. And then Jason's dead body.
People actually had room to do that in a Beetle? What is wrong with you? Find something bigger.
Body is never used in another plotline ever again.
Really? Seriously?
Before we dive into
Okay, one. My biggest problem with this is spilling the liquids everywhere. That actually physically annoys me because I'm just thinking, oh, I have to clean that up. Yeah, I'm that guy. I hate the mess. It bugs me. That's why I ignore it. And my wife doesn't see anything because there's no mess. There's nothing here. I'm not repressing any giant piles of things I need to clean up.
Riverdale Season 1, I do want to acknowledge that the internet and society tend to be very cruel to, well, anything teenage girls get excited about. And as tempting as it is to join the lucrative subgenre of men in their 30s getting angry about children's media, that is really not my goal here.
This was children's media? I was assuming this was for adults, or as the CW calls it, teenagers. But that would very much change my calculus on this if this is actually meant for that.
And there are positive things about Season 1 of Riverdale. Like, the casting is generally pretty great. Lily Reinhardt imbues Betty with a sweetness and charisma that really captures the charm of that character. Madeline Pesh as Cheryl has this cruel, sarcastic edge that unironically makes her so much fun. And KJ Apa playing Archie, who spends half the show getting the piss kicked out of him, performs the character with the innocent sympathy of a small dog who cannot get his PlayStation working on Christmas morning.
I'm not empathizing with that because I was in that exact position. It wasn't Christmas morning, it was the entire damn week. But, oh, wow. That is the most descriptive way I've heard someone describe. It's like, hey, sympathy and just knowing that there's something great happening that you just can't achieve, but it's so easy for everyone else. That is horrible, and I kind of love it as a description. He's basically the guy you're supposed to root for immediately. How did he die horribly or become monstrous? This is how it seems like it's going to go.
He also looks very good with his shirt off, and the
they're taking advantage of that.
Very, very aware of this. In fact, the entire cast of Riverdale, including the parents, all have this level of unearthly super beauty I could only liken to some impossible, sacred, dear God. So
I have watched too much SCP, and yeah, I know Watch is weird considering it's a archive, mostly just because the Exploring series does a lot of videos about that. But the second they said Dear God, I was going to that franchise. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know why I'm now very confused, because there's probably something else that they're talking about. It's not what I'm thinking. Also, yeah, an earthly level of beauty is kind of normal for most shows, though. Embracing ugly is weird, mostly because people just generally like looking at beautiful people. It's like, hey, everyone looks like this. I don't. I know it for a fact, but it's just one of those fantasy aspects that people kind of go with. Unless you're in a gritty war tune or like War Thunder, minus the leaks. It's like, yeah, we want gritty and grizzled and broken up in the face. But even then, there's that aspect of fantasy where you think someone in here is going to be tough and gritty and not a 300-pound man with a quesadilla that he's going to throw at you and explode. I have never played War Thunder. I'm just assuming that's part of it at this point.
it is a nice show to look at. And unfortunately, that is where my praises end.
What?
If we break down season 1 into its two core aspects, it would be the murder mystery plot and the high school drama that plays out between the characters. And it's that second part that makes up the vast, vast majority of season 1.
Really?
The problem being that it's just not very good. When not borrowing plot lines from other better teen dramas, your OCs, your Gossip Girls, your Dawson's Creeks, yes,
I'll be honest, if they had pulled any of that on me, I would never have known. I've seen none of those.
I have watched all of these. No, I will not offer any explanation. The only thing that Riverdale really...
Oh, wait, that... Oh,
Yes,
I've seen the meme of this.
No, I will not.
I've seen this as a meme. I didn't realize that was Dawson's Creek. Oh, wow. That is a lot older meme material than I expected. I have no idea when this came out. It could be very new for all I know.
Not offer any explanation. The only thing that Riverdale really has to set itself apart is its attempt to tackle modern teenage social issues, which it does do very badly. Riverdale season 1 has this habit of dragging up social issues but then discussing them with all the languid reluctance of my partner whenever I suggest she give Dragon Ball Z another go. Case in point.
Okay, nothing to say. I just want to address my condolences for Super Eyepatch Wolf on not getting their partner into Dragon Ball Z. That is horrible. One of the criteria of marrying my wife was that she was a Dragon Ball Z fan. And she clarified that immediately and was like, you know what? Take it or leave it. You got it there. And I'm just saying like, no. This is important. I'm good. Again, my condolences.
The episode on slut shaming. It starts when Veronica hooks up with a football player, Chuck, only for her to be slut shamed on social media the following morning. Chuck claiming he gave Veronica a sticky maple, and it's like, okay, cool. Slut shaming's a
sticky maple. I'm sorry, they literally went with that level of infantile, oh, hey, we can't talk about, we're going to talk around it. And then they just put a tree pun for sap on the face? Just say what it is. Hell, I would have respected it more if they just showed the actual thing right there. I mean, I wouldn't really care because, again, fluids. Ugh. But I'm sorry. Really?
A sticky maple.
This is so non-offensive. It's like, hey, our audience doesn't know what sex is yet. That is the level here. I don't just, and it's not my feed. I don't know a social media. I can't tell if this is a reference to Facebook, Instagram, which is also Facebook, or not MyFace. What is the other one called? MySpace. Yeah, that's the joke probably. But they couldn't even just call it MyFace, like the actual joke, and go full on. No. But just literally took a picture and photoshopped maple syrup on there. Also, if your maple syrup is sticky, you have shit level maple syrup. So these people have no idea what good maple syrup is. And for that, the people who do the animations and the writers, you have my condolences for your shit taste. You have no idea what the good shit tastes like because it's sweet and it's actually very liquid. It does not stain until much later and you realize it's actually still sticky. But it looks like it's clear and thin and goes right down and it is super sweet and it soaks into the pancakes like nothing else. I am really getting distracted from the topic here, but I stand by everything I said because if you had bad maple syrup, yeah, it's not actually maple syrup. It's just water with sugar.
And it's like, okay, cool. Slut shaming's a real problem and a topic that shows
Did someone
like this
die over this?
should talk about. However, we soon learn that Veronica never actually slept with Chuck and he's been lying, as he has with every other girl he's harassed in the same way. Now, I am not a lady, so I might be out of my depth here, but in a story about how women shouldn't be shamed for having healthy sex lives, is it not perhaps an important part of that story that the women in question do have healthy sex lives? Because if they don't, then the focus now shifts from women are being slut-shamed and that is a societal problem to this one football player is a liar and that's... well, that's very bold, and even carrying this kinda shitty implication that if these girls had actually slept with Chuck, they would be more deserving of the online harassments. It's frustrating because the show did have...
Oh. You know, my initial impression was it was bad just because it was a stupid pun to make it safe for TV, but now that he's pointing it out, the entire premise is just... Not even stupid. It undermines itself, which is not what I was expecting because I'm used to these kind of like, oh, hey, yeah, this happened. And then someone's doing this thing. I'm mostly keeping in general terms, partially for YouTube and partially because this is, oh, he mentioned earlier that they stole plot lines from other shows. So I guess this is every show where the person who got caught lying is doing something, but they wanted to make it edgy. So they made it about sex. But it's really not. It's like, hey, this is why you shouldn't lie. It hurts people. I was not expecting this. Probably why we're in the section right now that says season 1, and I'm assuming it gets better. And this is why he had very few nice things to say about it. And that's also probably why they switched to the weird as hell shit, because the normal levels of drama were boring. I'll be honest, if I had seen this, I probably would not have even bothered watching this reaction because I would have been bored in advance just by the content, which is probably why I never watch TV.
Have a chance to say something cool and interesting here. It just didn't, and that is a constant.
They actually did the slow
season
walk,
1,
really?
particularly in how they handled Jughead. See, a staple of Jughead's character across nearly all Archie comics is that he has zero interest in romance, because if he does, that would disrupt the love triangle of Betty, Veronica, and Archie. And this has led a lot of fans to speculate that Jughead is asexual. This aspect of the character was actually canonized in 2016, but in Riverdale, it's disappointing for 2 reasons. One, I'm sure asexual folks would have appreciated the representation. There are very few asexual characters on television, and one of them is SpongeBob SquarePants. And 2,
You know, I can't say he's wrong about that entire statement, but I need a second to rack my head around the fact that that's one of the representations that comes up. And I know it's the shock value of saying, hey, SpongeBob SquarePants is a representation of asexuality. But on the other hand, I'm trying to think of who else could do it. I'm just going immediately Patrick Star, which no one wants as being their representation, unless it's a joke, in which case it's awesome. And I can't think of anyone else. at least in Western media. There's probably a bunch in novels and fiction that I can think of off the top of my head, except the one I was thinking there is from a web serial that was then retconned later. But, I'm actually kind of curious about that. Because it's just never something I thought about, partially because I don't watch TV much at all. Ooh, button. Wrong button.
I think creatively, this would have been a much more interesting direction for the character. Like, take Todd.
It was a CW
from
show, right?
Horseman. Part of what makes this character feel like such a sweet little angel man was watching him figure out himself and the difference between sexual and romantic love. And it made for these super endearing plot lines that felt fresh and original because you hadn't seen them 100 times before. And the creators are aware of this. Cole Sprouse, who plays Jughead, has been an advocate for this direction for the character, and even in early interviews,
We're not going to start with Archie's band or Jughead's asexuality or any of the things that have become canon. Those are all stops in the way to the journey? Was this set in the first season before things went off the rails? Because if they had this planned out, I'm actually very impressed and also kind of terrified. If only because that means they planned out all the boring shit and their judgment of, hey, this is a good idea, is probably wrong. Or they were playing three-dimensional chess and risking, their show being canceled because they decided to put boring shit up there.
Casa and the writers have stated that they planned on exploring this aspect.
Unless it's just
of
something you
Jughead,
dropped altogether.
But we are now 5 seasons in, and
Planned. Yeah.
my point here is not that the show is bad for not portraying Jughead as asexual, just that this is part of a larger trend of insincere writing where the show wants to come across as socially conscious, but does it insincerely or ineptly. And it does so with even the most basic of social issues. Like, take this scene in Veronica's home where Ethel confesses that her dad has been fired, her family is broke, and she's struggling with mental health.
Okay.
And Veronica says,
Girl, we have a lot more in common than I thought.
Seriously? I'm sorry. I'm having a fit of secondhand cringe right now. That isn't how you make someone hate you. This is how you make someone not care about you. Like the look of, was this a growth episode for the character and they're just setting them up to be good later after they find out, oh, I made a mistake. Or are they just really like, hey, here's some horrible things and our writers are incompetent. This is a first season thing, right? I know a lot of times shows only have writers for maybe a season and some are carried on later because people move around as their need because you don't always get money when the show's not filming, so you move on to other projects and they don't always, work the same. It's why multiple writers and directors can do multiple episodes. It's sometimes why, for a lot of media, you have weird disconnects where it seems like a plot hole because there's overarching tones they have, but then certain things just kind of come up and they put it out there and they feel really different from previous episodes. And that's not just Western media, that's a lot of media. I'm looking at you, Gurren Log, on episode 4. If you know my reference, you know exactly what I mean, and it hurts. But that's an old one. I'm sorry, it's so bad, I need to watch it again.
and Veronica says,
Girl, we have a lot more in common than I thought.
No, it's still just as bad the second time. I am sitting here and thinking, you bitch, he's already clarified, you're the daughter of a millionaire. So literally everything you said about horrible shit, maybe you have mental health issues. The fact that you think this is an appropriate response right now is an indication that there's at least one present. The only thing worse is if they play that off as being an insightful comment, showing her empathy, fully going into the meme of, see, I'm an empath. I can sense things. Oh. I can see why he had very few nice things to say about season 1. I just didn't realize they were so painful that everything later is probably more realistic. I wasn't expecting the first season to be the unrealistic one because it's so this.
And Veronica says,
Girl, we have a lot more in common than I thought. We lost our place at the Dakota. Being ruined sucks.
Really?
and it's just,
Being ruined? That's like saying, hey, your dad died. I know. Mine just lost a thumbnail to a schmelting accident. It'll grow back in a few days, but it's fine. It really sucks losing things. This is why we're all in this together. It just sucks that your entire family is now trash. Get out. But even then, saying get out would hire the character to the level of, oh, they're that asshole who you can judge, as opposed to, no, they just dropped the ball. I'm sorry, from an actual writing perspective, this is so horrible that first level of cringe is only eclipsed by the sheer range of the fact that someone thought this was an acceptable line.
How are you ruined, Veronica? Look around you, sitting in your Chanel outfit, nibbling your quiche Lorraine off your bone china in your literal mansion. Arguably, the bigger issue is that when Riverdale is not grossly misunderstanding poverty, it is just every other high school show you have ever seen. Most of the
They tried to explain poverty as giving someone clothes. You know, I thought the show went completely insane was all the stuff we saw in the beginning of this. The crazy zombies, the cult, the nuns who were also the cult, the gay superhero clubs. No, that's the relatable stuff, because everything else is just so ridiculous. I'm glad they switched tones, but have they just ever put out a PSA saying, hey, the first season, there is no first season? Because at this point, that seems like it would be a safe option. I'm sorry, wow. I'm still reeling from that last scene because it shows tone deaf in the character, and more importantly, stupidity in the writing staff. The production staff for accepting it. The producer for thinking that was even something they should put their name on. The entire studio has probably put out dumber things because at this point it's just like throwing money at a wall and seeing what hits because advertisement. But I just, at any point, that was so bad. You can see that the people are writing it from a position that they have not just not been hungry, but have never had anything less than $1 million as a small expense. Which is weird considering most writers do not have that unless they're writing to their bosses, who also are in that case and would think anything else is probably stupid. Which is also entirely possible, considering a lot of writing staff who haven't been grandfathered in and haven't been there forever might look at $35,000 a year as, ooh, more money than usual. Not everyone, but the fact that that joke isn't actually a joke is depressing.
Locations take place in your typical hallways, classrooms, locker rooms, and walks to school, and all have the same personality-less, muted, dull look to them. The stories that play out within them, not really much more exciting. Betty's mom is mean, Jughead's dad drinks too much, and little Archie Andrews gets stage fright while playing his guitar. It never feels like we're learning anything.
The last one could at least be funny if it happens in silly ways, or dramatic if he's all hyped until then. But considering how thirsty he is for everyone, he just takes off his shirt and will start applauding, even if he doesn't say a word.
About these characters through the scenarios they're placed in or the actions they take in those scenarios, but instead we just get these weird, awkward spiels as they just monologue about their own identity in a way that's, well,
In case you haven't noticed, I'm weird. I'm a weirdo. I don't fit in, and I don't want to fit in. Have you ever seen me without this stupid hat on? That's weird.
yeah. And while there is fun,
This is one of several times where a protagonist burns down their childhood home. Several? Please say we're going to the second season. Please say we're going to the second season. The final scene, the Black Hood. I don't know. Okay, it's not the second season because at this point, I'm assuming they would treat the second like this. If the next words out of his mouth are, they burned down their home, it's like, wow, this is horrible. My family had to suffer for the day it took our insurance to provide us another mansion. Isn't that horrible? It's just like everyone else who's homeless. It's so horrible. This is why they should just get rich parents. It's that level of what the fuck? that I'm expecting at this point. Why?
In the murder mystery plot, and there are occasional flashes of strangeness, like Betty putting on a wig and becoming Dark Betty, or Cheryl's weird vampire coven of a family.
Okay, 1, vampire coven. 2, it doesn't look like a vampire coven. It looks like they went to a disco. Come on, that collar. You know what I'm talking about. But also, doesn't it look more like the actual character in the comics with the black hair? So it's not really Dark Betty. It's more canonically accurate Betty. Or Betty. Said Betty, whatever.
Outside of these fleeting instances, it's just a bog standard high school drama of such crushing mediocrity that, God help me, I'm about to use a graph to explain it.
What?
Here is something that I've
never seen him use a graph. How bad is this?
Really, that I like to call the mediocre valley. On the x-axis, we measure from low quality to high quality, and on the y-axis, we measure from unenjoyable to highly enjoyable. And if we were to chart my taste in media, it would follow this curve right here. At the highest end of both quality and enjoyment, we would have something legitimately great like
Okay, yeah, no, good taste there. Personally, I would put Steins Gate, but that's just because the sci-fi aspect is more in my niche of understanding, and I just love it. But this is definitely up there.
Bebop.
Good choice.
But on the opposite end, we would...
Oh, I get it. It's so good. It's good, and it's so bad it loops around to being good, and then there's something in the middle that doesn't actually differentiate itself at all. And then Isekai would be over here, so you kind of enjoy it because it's stupid. But down here is the shows are like, oh, this is just bad, but it's not so offensively bad that it becomes memorable in its own right. Very few things get there, and personally, I don't have much of a taste for that, but I can see why a lot of people do, because the room is so memeable, it becomes worthy of memes, which is why it's memorable, and there's enjoyment in that.
Would have something like the infamously terrible film The Room. However, despite the ocean of difference in the two's quality, both rate as highly enjoyable.
I like how I did push that one a little higher, though.
Well, it's a fucking masterpiece.
Yes,
and The
it
Room,
is.
Because through its sheer awfulness, it becomes this bizarre
Meme filter.
and fascinating portrait of the person who created it. It might not be traditionally great art, but goddamn is it entertaining. But then there's this section in the middle right here.
Yep.
And this is the dreaded mediocre valley. And it's here where I would place season
What else would he put
1
there?
of
Oh, it's even on the
Riverdale,
low end.
a series that's simultaneous.
Okay, that's actually depressing because it's not even good quality. It's bad quality on top of not being enjoyable. Not the least enjoyable, though, which I think is probably the most damning position, because at least they're half-assing it and they're getting some enjoyment out of it, which is actually depressing in its own right. I guess the 5 seconds of nice things was the entire enjoyment factor.
Has nothing to say while never being brave enough to be terrible. And this carries right through the entirety of season 1 up until its very final scene.
Oh?
And it's here where things start to get a little unusual. With all the plot threads tied up, we...
See, this is the thing I'm kind of curious about. Were they given 1 or 2 seasons in advance to try and build out the characters? Because on the one hand, if they have multiple seasons guaranteed because, I don't know, maybe the producer's rich and it's like, hey, we're doing a passion project, you're allowed to fuck around to find out, as opposed to normal where it's like, fuck around and find out you don't have a job anymore. I guess that's a different way to use the phrase, but technically accurate. Because I'm assuming the season finale, the final scene, is like, oh shit, weird stuff is happening, and it finally gets interesting, as opposed to everything prior to that going, hey, we are doing everything we can to get canceled. There's probably going to be someone explaining this, and it might even be Super Eyepatch Wolf going, they're building up the characters so you know what it's getting, so when we get to the weird shit, it hits harder. But I don't think that matters, because the worst thing you can do in media, especially when it's not a passion project where you're willing to burn money to get there, is to make something boring. Boring gets revised. Boring doesn't start online conversation about how good or bad it is. It starts the people going, I don't care, let's do something else, and moving away and then never coming back. This is shooting yourself in everyone else's dick, getting them mad at you, giving them the pitchforks, and them still not caring because interacting with you is so painful that hate at being shot at the dick is too much care for them. Now let's see how it changes, because I don't think he would have talked about the show if it was just boring, because there's a lot of really boring, stupid shows out there. This doesn't seem to be it because I know it goes weird. Because just the intro, basically.
We close out season 1 with a scene of Archie joining his dad for a milkshake at Pop's diner. He enters the bathroom and gives himself this smile like, hey, everything's gonna be all right. Oh, Archie, you haven't even been mauled by a bear yet.
I'm sorry, what? Also, am I the only one looking at this going, this smile right here?
All right. Oh, Archie.
Like, it just that smile, like, it's all right. It's all right. But, like, if you just go a few seconds earlier. That's the wrong button. Let's see if I can get back to the right one. That's easier this way.
Enters the bathroom and gives himself this smile like,
This is not a happy smile. This is a, I just got away from murder. My name's Dexter. That's that smile. If this was how the show looked more often, with the incredible creepy, like, tones, I think even the stupid writing would be better.
like, hey, everything's gonna be all right. Oh, Archie, you haven't even been
Did the
mauled
bear
by a
actually
bear
happen?
yet. When suddenly he hears shouting coming from outside and emerges to find a gunman menacing Pop Tate before turning his gun on Archie's dad, who is shot trying to protect Archie.
Damn!
The gunman fleeing the scene, bringing season 1 of Riverdale to a shocking close.
It actually had a plot. That would be the shocker there. I mean, it's a shooting in America. No one actually thinks that's surprising anymore.
And I have a theory about this scene, and that is, I don't think the writers had any idea what they were doing when they wrote this scene.
I don't think they had any idea at all what they were doing for writing any scene. Because let's be completely honest, we have seen just a couple segments, and they all show you very clearly they don't know what the fuck they're doing. At least shock value has the entire goal of, we don't know what we're doing, the audience will know what we're doing, and it doesn't matter because it's going to be weird. And that's still more thought than I think they gave anything else. I have biased opinions because of bad writing.
Who the shooter was?
Does it ever come
or
up again?
Where this storyline was going. I think this was just written as a big, shocking moment. That
Yep.
might not sound like a big deal, but whatever I'd say about the rest of season 1, it does feel like a planned story with an inciting incident that triggers each character's arcs, all of which wrap up logically by the final episode.
Does it though? Like, does it really seem planned? Because not that they didn't think it through, but that saying it's a plan would give them the benefit of the doubt that they're competent enough to do good writing. And as that one scene has shown us, they don't do that.
And if I'm right, then this scene is the moment that stopped happening, when the show goes from a coherent narrative to something else. And so I'm gonna let you be the judge, which is why you'll forgive me for presenting my case as to why I believe the writers did not know where this story was going in excruciating detail.
Oh,
Okay,
I like
I want to start
excruciating
by
detail.
asking a very simple question. What happens in this scene? And specifically, what is the motive of the gunman? And there are 3 pieces of evidence to tell us this.
I just need to clarify. And please, if I'm wrong, don't tell me. This actually does come up later. They actually involve certain things happening. Because at this point, I could easily see it being, okay, yeah, they just did it randomly. But I just want to pretend, for a moment, that this isn't just, hey, random thing happens, and next he's back alive, nothing ever happened. Which does happen in serialized media. That actually bugs me entirely. Like, there's no part about that that doesn't annoy the shit out of me. So I'm hoping it doesn't go that way. Please say he's going into this saying, like, they had no idea what they're doing, but they ran with it. As opposed to, they had no idea what they're doing, and then they dropped it. There's a very big difference between the two of them.
The first being the gunman initially targeting only Pops, presumably because his objective is to get money from the till, only turning on Fred when he tries to intervene. And supporting this is our second piece of evidence. Though it's muffled, we can hear the gunman scream at Fred to give me your wallet. Our third piece of evidence coming after Fred is shot, when we can plainly see
Money left
loose
behind?
dollar bills littering the floor.
50s too,
Presumably
and
which the
hundreds?
shooter took from Pop's till. And so
Why the fuck does he have hundreds in his till? No one pays with hundreds.
So the conclusion I think most reasonable people will come to is that the gunman's motive was to steal money, which led to a botched robbery.
But he left the money behind.
Resulting in Fred Andrews being shot by accident. Now, what if I told you that that is not what happened? Season 2 begins and the entire scene is no longer a botched robbery,
What?
but instead the introduction of the green-eyed serial killer, the Black Hood, a maniac.
Oh my god. So in other words, they had no idea what they're doing, so they reshot the first scene. Or the final scene to redo the second scene because like, you know what? We're going to go weird. We put a little weird aspect in, but now we're going to go full weird. It makes more sense. And I can see why he said it was completely random because they had no idea what they were doing. So there's like, hey, that got people's interest. Let's focus on that and hope they ignore all the other shit. Admittedly, that's the exact right take right there because it makes the show weird as opposed to, oh, it's weird. They actually thought this was worth putting out there.
Hell-bent on cleansing Riverdale of sinners who targeted Fred Andrews because of an extramarital affair he was having with Veronica's mom. And this change
That's it?
raises 3 big inconsistencies
Did he shoot himself at
with
some point?
how the scene was originally shot. 1, if Fred Andrews was the gunman's target, then why did he attack Pops first? Fred is plainly visible from the entrance. And 2, if this was not a robbery and his motive was to kill Fred and not steal money, then why
could have just
ask
shot
for
him.
Fred's wallet, especially before shooting him if that was the original intention? And 3, if this really wasn't a botched robbery, then where did the loose bills littering the ground come from?
Also, they made it in high dollar donations, which again, it's a small thing, and the realism in this show is already shit. There's no need to point it out, but most people don't pay with $100 bills. They don't pay with 50s. They want cash in 10s, maybe 20s if they do randomly have 100. But frankly, no, they won't break a 50. They'll bring in a 20, which is why they might have a lot, or specifically anyone at a till would have a bunch of 20s, because that's usually how people pay. It's the most common denomination. 10s, 1s, 5s, even $2 or $3 bills, which are honestly at this point so rare that you should probably save them. I think there is a $2 bill. I don't think there's a $3 bill. But the weird part is so many people counterfeited them and they're fake, but they're also rare pieces. So they're kind of worth holding on to because they have their own monetary value separate from being actual money. I know it's weird. It's just like weird history things. When they get old enough, they become valuable sometimes. But that all is there. $100 bills in a till, that's weird. And I wish they'd focus on that because it would have done something more than the initial scene being, hey, here's shock value because we got no other idea what the fuck we're doing. Please don't forget about us again. And then they actually got their act together and did something interesting. Even if it meant it completely ignoring the fact that they have no idea what the fuck they're doing, just retconning everything.
It's through these 3 inconsistencies we can see how both the motives of the gunman and the actual events of the scene itself were changed in between seasons. Meaning... Objection! Okay, shit. While writing this, I actually found some evidence that maybe I'm wrong here. The Black Hood is an old MLJ comic book superhero, and the show does like to reference classic MLJ characters a lot, so the gunman wearing a...
Seriously. So it was a reference to like, hey, something fun. So in other words, they thought ahead to the reference, but they still had no idea what the fuck they were doing. They threw them in there. It's like, hey, here's a plot twist. I still don't think anything beyond that. Like they knew about the source material, but not about how to make a good show still. I'm not going to give them that credit.
Black Hood could indicate that they really did have bigger plans for this scene.
Did they?
And there is a
Did
line
they,
in
though?
narration that indicates this wasn't just a random robbery.
Marked by an act of violence. It was anything but random.
Granted, that could have just been added in post-production after
Yeah.
this was shot, but the inconsistency with the wallet, well, Season 2 actually addresses this directly by speculating that the Black Hood took Fred's wallet so he could learn where Fred lives and attack Archie and his dad at a later date.
Seriously? Dude, all of that stuff is publicly available online. You just need Google. And unless this is set in the 90s, which admittedly would be a really good way to avoid that, I doubt it. That's stupid. You don't need to shoot someone to attack them later. You could literally just shoot them and then Google where they live to fuck around with them more. Or the newspaper when they talk about the obituary and they say where he survived fine and where they're going to have him buried, and then terrorize the family there because they published that shit.
Which does kind of make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Man.
No, that's an ass pull. That is an ass pull. Do not give them credit on that one. That is bullshit. It is completely unrealistic, and it is in no way, shape, or form real because no one needs to steal a wallet from a person they just shot to find out where that said person they just shot, who they know they were having an affair on, is, so that they can find where they live because they already know about the affair, which is a much harder thing to find out. So if they have that much ability to do sleuthing, to find out about that shit, they can easily find out, oh yeah, he drove back here by watching him one day. Hell, you could just take the mask off, put a different jacket on, and watch where Archie goes back to after he gets out of the hospital or the morgue. And then, oh yeah, here's where he lives. No need to shoot someone to steal their wallet. It's such a... I'm sorry, that actually proves more of his thought. And he's trying to teach us the, yeah, no, they had a plot here. No, they don't. And the writers are stupid. Please tell me the weird shit didn't have bad writing on top of being weird. I like weird shit when it's weird and well written. I don't like weird shit when it's just boring, but they're trying to spice it up. And even then I can take that better than just this level of ass covering.
Why would I set up my own argument only to debunk it?
No. You made the correct argument. This is stupid.
Objection! Or so I would say if the second season's attempt to cover up the inconsistency with the wallet didn't lead to a far bigger inconsistency. See, when we eventually find out the identity of the Black Hood, he's revealed to be Hal Cooper, Betty's father, who also had an extra marital affair, but it's fine, it doesn't matter. Who wouldn't need...
Seriously? So even the bullshit aside of finding the wallet, he already knows where the guy lives because he knows where... I don't even... It's like, it's not about the sin. It's about getting rid of people who did the exact same shit I did. This is very much an ass pull. It's just an ass pull. And the only way to fix it is to go so weird that ass pulls actually become the accepted normal trope.
Fred Andrews' wallet to know where he lives because the two are next door neighbors. But my real silver bullet piece of evidence in my case as to why the writers really had no idea who the Black Hood was, even well into season 2, comes in that little innocuous detail they gave us about the Black Hood's green eyes.
The dad doesn't have green eyes?
Because if we look at this scene from season 2, episode 10, we can very clearly see that Hal has blue eyes.
In other words, they decided to go with details later on. It's like, you know what? We're just retconning it because we didn't put any thought into it. Everything they're trying to correct right now is just highlighting how much it needed to be corrected. I'm sorry. I'm actually enraged about this entire thing from a writing standpoint. I have a master's in fiction. I have literally sat here and watched people make incredible productions of fiction and art on the free side of YouTube and then just throw themselves into it. Yes, I'm referencing Murder Drones. And it's amazing and thought out and thought provoking and everything in there is so cool and a clue. And then there's this and it's like, it's the anti-clue. The more you think about it, the dumber it gets. And the more you feel like the correct option here is to do what that one girl in the beginning did and bang your head against a wall because it's so bad. Please, Super Eyepatch Wolf, tell me they got different writers because these people do not know what the fuck they're doing. Or they're being told to write really stupid plot lines really fast, which admittedly is probably true regardless.
But then fast forward to season 2, episode 20, and his eye color has now changed to a vibrant green.
Really? That was green? Honestly, I thought that was more brown. Maybe it's the light. It's probably the light.
Because it's only now he's being written as the Black Hood, meaning the writers really would have had no idea who this character was or where this story was going.
But they listened to fan speculation, which is admittedly the right choice.
Wrote it. Your Honor, I rest my case. The reason I'm going into such detail about... oh God,
Using the word detail in association with this is also probably a mistake, but we're just going to move on from that one.
Shouted too much in the previous section, and I think I've lost my voice. Hang on.
Ooh, hate doing that.
The reason I'm going into such detail about this is that understanding how this scene was wrote changes the intended purpose behind it.
In this sense, assuming it had an intended purpose other than we need something to get people interested in the end of the show, because otherwise it is actually the end of the show because we wasted an entire season of fluff. Not euphemism, it's just fluff. Cotton that blows away in the wind and is absolutely useless. Like, why are you doing this? I don't know. Fuck it. They're trying. I'll give them that. They're very much trying. But frankly, at this point, they should have just said Riverdale 2. There was no Riverdale 1. And leave that as the tagline.
It wasn't written as the beginning of a planned narrative, but as this big instance of shock and awe designed to draw in as much attention as possible.
Because they lost
And
everything
here's the
else.
thing, it worked. Riverdale saw a huge spike in viewership from season 1 to season 2, and while there could be...
On the other hand, it then immediately lost everything, and it went back down to a level comparable but slightly better than where they were before. That is not really a good way to do it. I'm not sure of the time metric. So is that days or weeks or episodes? If that's 13, that might be 12 episodes, 13 episodes of the new season. That's probably what it is, because if it's anything else, that is very disappointing. I have no idea what the usual metrics for video retention is in actual TV shows, but this graph is not really that nice. It says, hey, we did something great. It got people's attention, and we lost it.
Multiple factors at play here. I'd bet that the shock of the shooting scene at the end of season 1 was a big factor in it.
So I was actually going to do the entire video Super Eyepatch Wolf did in one go, but right now, because of how bad that first season was, on a sheer writing comprehension level, that I need to stop, because everything that comes after where they're actually thinking about having a plot line and all that weird shit that I'm hoping is in this next season and seeing what happens going forward, I need to take a moment right now to stop and separate them, because if I don't, I'm going to take all of my anger at the lack of ability to tell a story and transfer it onto things that apparently are going to be better and more interesting, if weird, and hopefully better. Please don't tell me if I'm wrong about it being better. I just want to delude myself into believing that's the case, and I'm okay with that. But I just need that time to reset and convince myself that it wasn't that bad. It was harmless. It definitely was, and I'm not. That's nothing to be convinced about here. It's definitely the truth. Yeah. So I'll come back. I'll do the next one, and hopefully be a little less physically enraged than I am right now. Yeah, bad writing pisses me off. Good writing, I love it. I geek out over it. Bad writing like this, it's just an example of just give the writers time and don't give them stupid directions, because this is bad. And I'm assuming they were told to write it fast because it's Archie. No one gives a fuck. They like stupid writing because it's Archie. No one does anything good. Keep it light-hearted, make it silly and witty and quippy, and then move on quickly. And then they saw they actually got a response on the one weird thing they did at the final scene, and yeah, that makes sense. This is actually hard to watch. Not as hard as the Psychic video where that was enraging in a different way, but this is just on a professional level. If it was bad throughout the entire way, I think I could actually deal with this better. But the fact that that Super Eyepatch Wolf showed us it got really weird and like, what the fuck inducing, I'm judging it harsher because I know that they have the ability to put out curveballs. And it just took them an entire season to learn, oh yeah, we can do interesting things. And please, again, I know I've said this, I'm going to say it again. If it actually isn't interesting, just let me keep that delusion for another week. Thanks. Otherwise, you guys know the deal. Link below, video from Super Eyepatch Wolf. If you haven't hit it up already, do it again. Do it now. Do that. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.